Know me, my name is Bob Love, and I've got an apiary outside of Lufkin. I've got, well, it varies quite often, between 20 and 30 hives in my apiary. And when you're looking at doing splits, you know, as anything with agriculture, you need to always be looking ahead to what we need to do next, and preferably looking 2 to 3 months out from where you're at right now and getting prepared for what you're going to do, and trying to get a game plan, and it'll go a little bit better if you do that. And deciding what your goals are with your apiary, whether you want to produce a lot of honey, whether you just want to have a couple of hives and maintain the best hives that you can, and just have 2 or 3 for your own personal use, or if you want to raise bees and sell them to people, or you know, just exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish. And splits is one of the ways that we do that. You know, it's a way of multiplying your hives rather than just going out and buying hives. You can split your own bees at the right time of year and really increase the number of your hives, you know, in a short manner. You can go from 2 or 3 hives to 15 or 20 in a single year, if what you're trying to do is make bees. You kind of got to decide whether you want to make bees or you want to make honey. And you can do splits in that once you decide what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can do splits in a manner that helps you in accomplishing that. Now right here, let's say we've got several hives, and we went in through winter and we've got 2 deeps, and we open up our hive and we're looking in here, and we've got, it's busting out the seam with bees. Both boxes have got lots of brood, lots of bees and everything, and I'm worried that, you know, all these bees are going to go crazy on me and leave. Yes, sir.
When do you do that?
Sir?
When is the best time to do that?
To do splits?
To start, to decide if and when you're gonna split.
That's always kind of weather dependent. We got to, and it's determined by the flow and how fast your bees build up. You start looking in February, is what I would say. Is as soon as the weather starts getting up into the upper 50s, you know, consistently, and we're not having the big hard freezes, when you can get into your hives and do inspections and you see that the bees are bringing in natural pollen, okay? Now, if you're trying to produce bees, you're trying to produce as much honey as possible, then right now you need to start feeding. You need to start giving the bees everything that they need to build up, and so that when we do get a spring flow, that the bees are ready, okay? And a lot of the times, as Robert Jones and several others have pointed out, our tallow flow over the last few years has been spotty. You know, if we have, you know, dry weather, then we don't get much of a tallow flow. So a lot of the times around here, depending on where you're at, your honey's produced from privet and the hollies and those type of plants, okay? And that's generally early, okay? So if your thoughts are, okay, I want to get as much honey as I can this year, then maybe keep an eye on your hives and don't split until after that early flow is done, okay? or if you do split, do a small split off of your hive and do something, so you keep your numbers up in the main boxes that you're producing honey out of. I'll kind of get into a little bit of that here in a minute. But say, right now, we're just gonna, we've got 2 hives, we're wanting to go to 4. And we've got 2 double deeps right here. I've looked through there, I hadn't found my queen, but I know she's there. There's tons of bees, tons of brood, eggs. I'm not so worried about producing a whole lot of honey. I just want to have 4 hives. That's my goal for the end of the year. Well, what you can do is that, all right, I hadn't found any queen cells in there, but I know I've got, brooding eggs here, brooding eggs there. Is just take the box, pop one off, set it over here on the new bottom board, grab me another lid, put it here. I've done a walkaway split. Wow. Okay, that's all there is to it. There's not anything else to it. The bees will make their own queen. Whichever box doesn't have a queen, they'll figure it out. Now, the box that doesn't have a queen is going to be behind the other box. Okay? Within about 3 or 4 days, you go back into your boxes, you'll see queen cells in the box that doesn't have a queen in it, because those bees will realize that they're queenless. They'll start drawing out queen cells. They'll take those fresh eggs and make them into a queen cell. That's about the simplest way to do a split, period. Okay, not necessarily the best way. Okay.
Bob, how far do you put them boxes?
Apart.
That's as far.
Side by side. Now you'll get some drift back and forth between them, but every time I've done, and I'm not a big proponent of walkaway splits, I've done them. And generally, if I do a walkaway split, it's because I don't have the time. I got to do something. I've got too many bees that are fixing to swarm on me, and I don't have the time to do a proper split. Okay, but a lot of the times if I do a walkaway split, it's because I've seen queen cells. And I can't find my queen. She may have already swarmed out and I just missed it. And if I get into that situation and I go, I don't have the time. I had 30 minutes to come out here and look today, and I was in there last week and there wasn't a queen cell in it, just a bunch of bees, and now I open it up and I've got 10 queen cells. Okay, I'm fixing to either lose them all or I'm fixing to have 2 hives. So when I do that, if I see a bunch of queen cells and I don't have the time to make up splits, I'll just pick my best looking queen cells, knock the others off, leave 2 in each box, and do a walkaway split like that. If you don't, if you knock off every queen cell in there, there's a good chance that your queen's already gone and you won't have eggs in there, the right age for them to make it up. And then now I've really created a mess.
Thank you.
What do you think your success rate is on a walkaway split of winding up with a lay and queen in both of them?
It depends entirely on what time of year it is. Okay, if it's February, March, early April, okay, probably 80%. If of getting a queen that goes out on a mating flight, not necessarily getting it back.
Okay.
Depending on your area, and some other factors on how many of your queens get back mated. But, you know, in something like that, they will, you know, you got a lot better chance early in the year when there's a good flow going and weather and everything else. If my goal's honey production, and I've got a double deep here, and I'm wanting a couple more hives, but I really want to have the honey production that I had last year. Last year I had 2 really strong hives, and this year, you know, I really like the queen that I've got in here, but you know, she's a year-old queen. Okay, she's going to start slowing down. She may not slow down till she's 3 years old, but she's not going to lay as good at 2 years of age as she did when she was 3, as a general rule. So what we look at in that situation is like, I really want to keep this hive as strong as I can, but they're right at the point where they're 1 bee shy of a swarm. Okay, so what do? I go through my hive and I'm doing my inspection, and I was like, you know, I really like this queen, but she's gonna start slowing down. I may want to graft off of her. I may want to do something else. So, but I've got too many bees in here, so I just pull out 3 frames out of that hive, and I add them in here, and I put 3 blank frames back in this hive.
3 frames of brood.
2 frames of solid brood. One with eggs and larvae. Or I like to do 1 cap brood, 1 eggs and larvae, another with at least some, you know, pollen and some reserves, some food on it. Okay, so I pull 3 out, maybe 4, maybe even 5, and I add blank frames back into here, and I'll checkerboard them to make them feel like they've got a little more room inside this hive. Gives the extra bees something else to work on, to draw out. And I take my old queen and I always split her out. Okay, so the bees actually think a swarm's happened. Okay, now once I've done this, if I'm really wanting this hive to produce the most amount of honey, what I should do is add a mated queen to it. Because give this hive 2 days after I've taken this queen out, and they're ready to accept a new queen. They're going to start trying to make queen cells and stuff inside this hive. If you got mated queens, put a mated queen in here and make sure you knock off any queen cells that you've got in there. They'll accept that queen, they'll release her, and you hadn't skipped a beat as far as production wise with this hive. You lost 2 or 3 days worth of bees from this queen laying. By having her here, that also gives you a chance if for some reason they don't accept anything, accept a queen over here, you can always move her back and put her back in the original hive, and they still think that they've lost their queen. That gives you a little more time. Yes.
So last year I split, and the colony that I split was just so full of bees, there was just no way, and of course they were mean as all get out. There was just no way to be able to find a queen.
Mhm.
So what we did is we just split from it was 3 deep, and she had gone all the way up and laid up there, so we just took the brood and all that kind of stuff and made it a split. So and then we put a new queen in the split, in the nuke box. So what does that mean for the colony that has the old queen, but so you were saying take the old queen, put it in the split,
Mhm.
but we did it the reverse way, cause there was no way we're gonna be able to find that queen.
That hive that's got the old queen, if your workers are gonna come back there, it's still more apt to swarm if you don't get her out of there.
Okay.
You can split it down to a point where you're gonna find her through the process of elimination,
Okay.
okay?
I got a question. If you put a mated queen in the old box right here, not the next one.
Yeah.
If they don't accept her, how many days do you have to get that other queen back in there before they won't accept her anymore? 2 or 3 days, a week, or?
That's the $1 million question, and there's no set answer on it. I would think you've got 2 weeks at the most. Okay.
Move the queen of the hive, sometimes they'll kill her anyway.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What is the proximity you're keeping the nuke, to the old hive?
Now nukes, I generally move a little bit further away, but I keep them in the same yard.
Well, I mean, right, like you have it here, but do you typically take the old queen with the 3
With
frames and
oh.
move it?
20, 30 feet,
Okay.
just move it off. The bees that are with the old queen, they're not going anywhere. They're going to stay with her. Okay, a lot of the times you'll have drift that goes back to the old hive. You still would have a little bit of your workers and stuff probably go back to the old hive. But if you go and these nukes, you can close them up. If you close them up and orient them in a different direction, and you set it down there and you leave them closed up for 12 hours and then go out there and open it up, those bees know that their queen is there. They're going to stick with her. The vast majority of them are anyway. Yeah, Richard.
In her case, she had 3 deep, couldn't find her queen. Wouldn't she have been better off doing a walkaway split instead of putting putting a new queen on or not knowing where the queen was?
It goes back to what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to accomplish honey production, if you're doing a split with a full deep of bees, then chances are you're gonna get honey off of that hive.
But if she's got 3 deep and it's packed full of bees and about to swarm, and she can't find her queen, instead of putting the queen and getting it in the wrong box, just take one of those boxes, move it over and checkboard it.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you can do that and do a walkaway split. At the same time, you can split them 3 ways. Within 2 days, you can figure out where your queen's at. Okay, 2 or 3 days. Now you've got to have that time to be able to devote to it. If you don't have that time to devote to it, then doing a walkaway split's probably your best option. Okay, if you do have the time where, okay, I can set them down, split it 3 different ways, and I can come back here and look at it in 2-3 days, then the bees will pretty much tell you if you got eggs in all 3 of them, they're gonna tell you that, hey, this one doesn't have a queen, because you're gonna see queen cells starting to be drawn out. And you're gonna see this hive is really unhappy when you go and pop the top and it sounds like the dryer's going, okay? They don't have a queen. And they're fixing to come out and tell you how much they don't like you being there. Okay, so now, one of the things, and I was talking earlier with a couple of y'all about this, I've got some hives. One of the reasons to do splits is to improve your genetics. That's another reason to go and get mated queens, is to get different genetics into your apiary. Every year I try to bring in more.
Before you get off of that scenario, what will you end up doing with the old queen and the nuke?
That's my next question.
I will, if I like that queen, okay? If I like that queen and she's been a really good honey producer, real gentle genetics and everything, I'll let her raise up and I'll give her a chance to go through the summer and everything else, but I'm probably gonna replace her in the fall. I may graft off of her. I may see how she does, or just use her to produce brood for other hives and other splits that I'm going to do. But if you got one that's laying fantastic and has good temperament and all the qualities that you really are looking for in one, I generally split her out and give her a chance to keep adding to my apiary.
Are you gonna leave her in a nuke if you keep her that summer, or are you gonna put her in a deep?
No, she'll go to a deep. She just gets split out into a nuke to start out with. And I'll give them a couple of frames, empty frames, so they can draw it out. And one of the reasons I do that is because if I got her in a nuke, it makes it a lot easier to find her if I decide I'm going to get rid of her, and it gives me time to say, hey, if I've got a problem, say I've done 20 splits, and I've got a hive over here that just it's not making it. I put in queen cells, I put in a mated queen, and they still don't have, they're not queen right, then I'll take that queen out, and if nothing else, I'll put another empty box up here and add that nuke in on top of it and do a paper combination to get a good producing queen back into that box and save that hive. I'll do a combine like that or something.
So the new queen that you put in the old hive goes into the nuke?
The old queen goes into the nuke.
Right.
I always split.
To put the old queen back where you got her. But let's say you had a new queen that was not accepted. You just switched the queens?
She's dead.
Oh, okay. She's dead.
Yeah, it's a Marie Antoinette situation. If they don't accept her, they kill her.
Yeah, but I assumed you'd put her in like a queen cage to give them time, and they don't, so you take her out while she's still in the cage because they just won't accept her.
No, they're going, you don't know until she's released into the hive. There's a little candy plug in that. They release her into the hive. Now, as soon as they release her into the hive, generally they accept her if she's been there long enough that they've eaten out that candy plug and released her into the hive. Sometimes, and I've seen it, it's one of the reasons you don't want to go in too quick after you put a queen into a hive, is because sometimes they can be running around in there everything's going great, and then you get into the hive and you're looking for, and they get, something goes wrong and they ball her and kill her. So that happens. I've seen a lot of $25 to $75 queens go up in smoke because somebody popped the top, you know, instead of giving it another day or two to just see if she's out. Okay, if you see that she's out and the bees aren't sounding like a dryer going, you know, there's not that aggressive hum and everything, then pop the top, pull my queen cage out, queen's been released, the bees are calm, close it up, come back in a week, look for eggs.
So how many days you introduce the new queen, you put it in, how many days do you come back and check to see if she's been accepted? The first day, 3 days.
3 days generally after I drop a queen, I'm gonna go back and see if she's been released.
Okay.
And I've come back and to a hive where I put a queen in a queen cage inside a hive and opened it up and looked at it, and they had completely waxed everything up, and the queen's dead, suffocated inside. That was a $75 queen.
It still hurts.
They didn't like that Hawaiian girl. But that was a learning experience for me, and I was like, well, I don't know anything I could have done differently. Maybe put her in a nucleus colony instead of one that was just, it was a double deep, and I was adding her in thinking, you know, but it was a hive that was just boiling with bees, and I'd split the old queen out, put her in there, and they totally covered the cage and wax and everything else, and she was suffocated inside, and they had queen cells everywhere.
And in that scenario, how long did you leave them queenless before you introduced her?
In that scenario, it was actually 3 days before.
Is that your preferred time? Is that your preferred time?
2 days. 2 days is generally what I shoot for. 2 days is generally what I shoot for. If I'm doing mated queens. Now, if I'm doing, the other things that we can do is we've talked about queen rearing. If you're doing your own queens, or you're buying, or if you're doing your own queens and doing grafting and producing queen cells yourself, when you do a split, you can drop a queen cell, and this again depends on, you know, your own preferences. Drop a queen cell down in the top in one of those protectors, put the lid on it, and go. A lot of the times I will put 2 in if I've got the queen cells. Now if I'm doing, you know, a bigger hive, I'll put 2 in, just because, just added insurance. Come back in however many days, 2 or 3 days, and see if the queen's hatched. If I'm trying to do as many bees as I can, to do a split, you actually only need two frames of bees. Okay, 2 frames of bees and a queen cell in between, and a frame of pollen, a frame of honey, or a feeder, and you can go. Drop a queen cell. You can take a double deep, and realistically, you can turn a double deep into 6 to 7 or 8 hives. And you can split just as hard and fast as you want to. The hives that I have that are aggressive, now I was talking with somebody earlier, I've got a couple of hives that are 3 deep and they're just busting at the seams with bees. But all those hives are aggressive.
And because of their large size and not because of genetics?
I think it's probably outside influences. I think they're getting hit by skunks and coons a lot, which is making them aggressive, but it's also a little bit of the genetics. Okay, the queen in that hive, when I find her, she's dead. She's dead. I like it, or if I split her out, I'm splitting her out, knowing that she's gonna go away. Okay, I'll put her in a nuke and maybe use it for donation brood and stuff, because 45 days from now, 2 months from now, no matter how bad the bees are in this hive, it's gonna be the queen that you've got now. Her genetics are gonna be the ones that are showing through. Okay, but I've got 2 triple deep hives that produced a lot of honey and a lot of bees, but they are not fun to be with. Okay.
Cranky.
Yeah, they're spicy. So what I'll do is I'll start going through that hive and I'll pull out two frames of brood. I'll drop it in one of these nuke boxes. I'll have my own queen cells and I'll drop 2 queen cells in this, one on each end right here. I've got a feeder and I'll go with that and put it out there, get a mated queen back and go with that, okay? But as soon as I get to where she's at, she's gonna die. I don't run fast enough anymore. Yes, sir.
We have, I don't know if it's because I've been Polish all my life, but when we get the mated queens,
Mhm.
and I try to put it in there, it seems like, how many did we buy? About 4 of them?
We lost several last year.
Yeah, we lost almost
Killed
every
them,
one
yeah.
of them. Like I said about being Polish, I took that queen cage and I pulled it out, and that rascal wouldn't go in. She flew out. You know, I don't understand how you can administer that or put that queen in there without having her escape. If you're working,
You're trying to do a live release?
I'm trying to.
Well,
do
she'd been in there like 3 days, or 4 days, more than that, wasn't it? And
Yeah,
they
it was
hadn't got
about
her
4
out.
days.
The candy was real hard apparently, and large, and they couldn't get her out. And so after so many days, we decided to try to let her out, but Mike kind of let her flew off.
May I add something?
Yes.
Sure. That queen that you bought it from somebody in a
Yeah.
little wooden box.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Take your top off and just put that box right there
That's
and
right.
watch how your bees react.
Well, that's what I did.
If they all go
they
to
were
it, they like her.
They were accepting her now, but it's when I took that
No,
off.
she just escaped that
And
one.
she
Yeah,
escaped.
but we had a couple get killed too.
Didn't like them.
Yeah.
What you do, Mike,
Yes, sir.
in that situation, pull 3 frames out in the middle,
Get down in there, yeah.
and then stick your hand down, okay,
Yeah,
to the bottom, and open her up inside.
yeah. way
And
down.
then just
That makes
pop
sense.
pop the screen off,
That makes sense.
just
Yeah.
break the screen off and just fold it back,
Right.
and then just drop the whole thing down and let her walk out.
So instead of candy, have you ever put a marshmallow in the cage for them to chew through? I've heard of doing that.
Yes,
Tried to-
I've done that.
You wouldn't expect expect a marshmallow.
on occasion, but the thing that happens sometimes is if I'm reintroducing a queen back into a hive, or for some reason I pull that queen out and I'm just a little leery of that, I use a marshmallow. They can go through a marshmallow in about 30 minutes if you got it too quickly.
Okay.
And so I'm if I've had what Mike and Joni were talking about happen before, the candy's too hard or they can't eat through it, take that queen out or queen cage out, and then take a little knife or something and take out that candy plug, and then put a marshmallow in, and then put that cage back in, and they'll go through the marshmallow in just
Quick, right.
What I tried
hour.
to do was just stick a needle in there, and I tried to make a hole so that they could, you know,
burrow
put it
through.
or loosen it up. Not even go all the way through. But it still didn't work for me. I
there's
think that's
nothing.
like Richard says. I should just let Joni.
Yes, sir.
Now, on your walkaway split you was talking about a while ago, when you split those hives off, you have to make sure, right, that both of those hives, now you'll know the queen's in one, but if you don't know which one she's in, you have to have eggs that are not more than 3 days old for them to make a queen cell, is that correct?
Yes, if you're gonna do a walkaway split, you need to go through your hive and make sure you have fresh eggs in both boxes.
There you go, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not just grab a box and go, although that works often is not. A lot of the times, especially in the spring of the year, the queen will be going up and down between both boxes in the center. But if you don't have eggs in both boxes, then you're gonna have,
Queen,
you got a 50-50 shot. You know, if you smoke the top box, she's probably run to the bottom. But if she's been up in the top box laying, and you take that top box and you set it over here, okay, and you got fresh eggs there, okay, then chances are she's probably in that bottom box. But it's still a shot in the dark. I'd rather make sure that I had eggs in both boxes. But you're correct. That's the way you need to do it, is make sure that you've got eggs and fresh eggs in both boxes.
So when you release your line of queens, have you ever put the sugar water, put a drop of vanilla, and kind of sprayed everything so everybody smelled the same? I've had luck with that.
I've sprayed sugar water. I don't spray my queen. But generally speaking, if you're doing a combination or you're introducing something new, if you've done something to disrupt the smells in that hive, that kind of helps them accept each other. A lot of people do that with packages, because packages may be bees from 5 different hives. And any other questions? Okay.
Everybody here knows Newton Lemke. He told me that. I had a box, or I caught a swarm, but they wouldn't stay in the box. I went back and caught them 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
I called Newton and he said, rub the inside of that box with sweet gum leaves. Rub that green right into the wood, and I did, and it worked.
I've had a friend that told me that he does something similar, but he'll use cedar. He says he's got bees up in Oklahoma, and he said he produces queens up there before he goes back to Minnesota, And he starts out here in Texas, and then he goes up to Oklahoma when it gets warm enough, and then he goes all the way up to Minnesota. And he said one of his biggest queen producing yards, every time a box of bees swarms, they go to these cedar trees that he's got, and he says, you know, I'll throw them into catch them and shake them into a box, and he said half the time they'll come right back out. And he said I started rubbing the inside of the boxes with cedar, and they started staying. So whether it's just dumb luck or whether there's something to it, I believe that something inside the hive that smells natural to them probably helps. You know, and that was his thing, was that I did it once just because, you know, I thought I'd try it and it worked, and he said it works more often than it doesn't, so he said I may have just gotten luckier at it, I don't know. Anybody got any?
I have a question, not with splitting. Tuesday, we're gonna have a deep freeze, it'll be down to 16.
Mhm.
And I was thinking maybe I should put a top over it, over overnight, a hive, or what do you suggest?
I would say anything that you can do, don't block your entrances and stuff, but anything that you can do that will help the hives retain heat and block the north wind would be a good thing.